deduce or work out how those phenomena work superficially. In terms of physics, chemistry, biology, astronomy, etc., mathematics. And that was a necessary stage in human development, spiritual development. And that actually is not over by any means, that particular phase. But it's on its downhill slope since 1879. Because what happened in 1879 was that Michael, the Archangel Michael, had had a battle with the Ahrimanic host and Ahriman himself, beginning in 1840, and the battle was finally over, and Michael was victorious, and he cast Ahriman out of the spiritual realm into the human being, which is where Ahriman is working now. So we all have Ahriman, as I said in a lecture I gave last year, coiled around our bowels as the dragon that wishes to drag us down. Okay, so now the thing is with Michael, of course, we take up the sword of Michael in order to not slay the dragon, but to keep the dragon under control. And there's two of them, because Lucifer's the other one. And the whole purpose of the Christ impulse is to enable us to have the forces at our disposal, if we so wish, to take up the Christ impulse in order for us to be able to balance Lucifer on the one hand and Ahriman. So let's see, keep Lucifer back and keep Ahriman down so they don't engulf us. That's the whole purpose of the Christ impulse. But we have to come to the relationship with Christ. And he did his deed for everybody, irrespective of color, creed. He did it for the individual human being. The whole idea of a Christian nation state is a complete absurdity. And he rejected that himself. I mean, the whole point about the temptation in the desert with Lucifer is Lucifer said, I'll give you dominion over everything, and Christ said, forget it. I'm not interested. And that is actually the impulse behind what Judas did. Judas knew, because all the disciples did know who Christ is. And notice I don't put him in a past tense. Christ is still a living presence today. And he knew who Christ is. And the reason he did what he did was because he wanted to force Christ's hand so that Christ would sort out all the political problems and get everything straightened out, because Christ certainly had the power, or has the power, to do that. But he rejected that. So the thing is, we have to come, in order to be able to balance Lucifer and Ahriman. So that's the Trinity. Now, the interesting thing about what Steiner says about the signs of the times that indicate that Ahriman is making his preparations is, one of them is the removal of Christ from Christianity, which has actually taken place. Because what happened in 897 AD, at the Council of Nicaea in Constantinople, the Council of Nicaea was like a relatively, frequent event. It wasn't just a one-time affair. I don't know whether it took place every 4 years or every year or whatever. But anyway, this particular one, what shall we say, the agenda was at this particular Council of Nicaea was to determine whether Christian doctrine, Orthodox Christian doctrine, was going to say that the human being is body, soul, and spirit, which it has been noted as being up until that particular council, or whether we were just body and soul and no spirit. And this council took place, and they debated this, and it was actually, the council said was actually, shall we say, a symptom of a battle that was taking place in the spiritual world bordering on this at that time. And interestingly enough, two of the participants in that Council of Nicaea, and later two individualities, they later incarnated as Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin. Because the interesting thing about that council is that the church doctrine, which it became heretical to oppose from that time on, was that we are constituted of body and soul, and the body will be taken care of by the political, social realm, and the soul will be taken care of by the church. And there's no spirit. So essentially what happened was, we had Lucifer on this side, and Ahriman on this side, and Christ in the middle. So by determining that we were built in body, constituted of body and soul, Christ was removed from the picture, Lucifer slid into his place, and now we have the opposing battle between good and evil, which has been taking, in terms of the philosophy, the theology, whatever, it's this battle between the forces of light and forces of darkness, and one of them is good and the other one is evil, and so we have this continual battle between good and evil, and you see that in every cultural manifestation ever since. And even the greatest minds, the greatest literary minds, literature, and poets and whatnot have fallen for that trap, including Goethe, including Milton, including this other guy, what was his name, Klostok, who wrote a book called The Messiah, and Milton wrote Paradise Lost. And essentially it was basically, Paradise Lost is about humanity being expelled into the realm of darkness by Lucifer. So essentially all Christians today, no matter what sect, denomination, whatever, they don't worship Christ at all, they worship Lucifer. And this is very manifest in the Christian church today, because it's all based on egotism. Selfish egotism, and you know, we're the chosen ones, and all this stuff goes on, right? And then when, you know, the second coming, which by the way has already taken place, we're all going to be the ones that are saved, and everybody's going to rot in hell, everybody else. I mean, that's just standard. Yeah, you don't, the Christian
In the
right?
second coming, when was the second coming?
1933. And it was not in the physical form, it was in the etheric world. He had his next appearance. Christ appeared again in the etheric world in 1933, and it was a monumental event, spiritual event, and humanity was distracted by it because what happened in 1933?
Hitler took power.
Plus we had the Depression,
Yeah.
worldwide. So the ruling power elite in the physical world made sure, through their machinations of the political sphere at that time and the financial sphere, to make sure people were so, shall we say, in a state of destitution and deprivation that they failed to feel and perceive the second coming of Christ.
Cora, would you say the same thing about Judaism?
What about it?
Well, just that it's more based on Lucifer than Christ.
Oh yeah, no question. So is Mohammedanism. There's no question. Yeah, because it's all ego-based, you know. It's like the whole purpose of Christ is to get rid of this See, that's one of the signs of the times that shows the preparation. Another one, okay, we just enumerated one, which is the Trinity being replaced by the duality. And by the way, yin and yang is not a duality, because it's the one creates the two, and these three create the 10,000 things. So the duality is the result of the Trinity. That's the point. Okay, you understand that, right?
Can you say that?
The duality is the result of the activity of the Trinity. The one creates the two, yin and yang, and these three create the 10,000 things, quote unquote, Lao Tzu. Because the original Tao is just another name for Christ. Yeah, that's what my researchers have shown me. Just as in ancient Indian culture, Christ was given the name Vishnu Karman. In ancient Persian culture, Christ was given the name Ahura Mazda. In Egyptian culture, ancient Egyptian culture, his name was Osiris. Osiris. So Christ has been known by the mystery schools since the beginning of time. And there have been Christians before Christ was even known. In fact, you know who said that? St. Augustine. He actually said that. So the thing is that now, to talk about other pending symptoms, or should we say current symptoms that are showing that Ahriman is making preparations for his incarnation. We just said that one about the Trinity. The other one is nation states. That's all. It's done with. The whole thing about basing any kind of culture on the bloodlines, racial characteristics, gone. It's finished and done with. It's over. It's past. And guess what's happened? When you go back to the end of World War II, how many countries were there in existence in the earth, on the world? Probably around 140, something like that. How many are there today? Around 270. Yeah. Just go to the CIA yearbook, fact book. They've got a great website, a lot of information on that. They do their homework, those guys. And it's public information. Yeah. There's been more and more. Look at all the countries in Europe that have been broken up and made into smaller countries.
No, I know there's a lot more, but I'm surprised it's that many.
Oh yeah, a ton of them. And there's a lot of them are just, probably the size of Berkeley. They're really, it's just amazing. But this is the whole Ahrimanic tendency. Ahriman, basically, his fundamental goal in this realm of political, social, cultural affairs is to have everybody the king of their own kingdom, and everybody has their own kingdom.
And so the question is, how do we know that Ahriman hasn't manifested now, given all what's going on in the world today? And how will we know, if not now, how will we know when?
I don't think it matters when it's happening. This is what I think. Anyway, let's finish up the symptoms, and remember, this was said in 1919. Now, there definitely have been pontifications in the anthroposophical literature about when specifically Ahriman is going to incarnate. And I say it doesn't matter. The point is to be prepared for it. Because you will know. Now, of course, before we get into answering that question, let's just do a few more of these symptoms of his pending incarnation. If he hasn't. Of course, somebody thinks that he already has. I don't think so. So nationalism, okay, that's one. I mean, it's very evident, and you can see what's happening in Europe right now is this reversion to nationalism is taking place, right? The breakup of the European Union is taking place. Now another one is the mechanistic viewpoint of life, where everything, including the human organism, is seen as a machine. Most people believe that the human organism is a physico-chemical machine, and that it functions according to the laws of physics and chemistry, and therefore you can chemically balance anything. You can take this, they can bring a drug out for obesity. No, totally insane. But they are.